Welcome to William Steele True Crime and Steele Spotlight Television. This is William Steele in South Florida in time for the Silent Partners movie premiere. Silent Partners is a movie based upon a book by Dave Iacovetti and his father's life story, Fat Dave from the Gambino family. So Dave Iacovetti, founder and impresario of Club TV, check that out, wrote the book, and Ciro and him worked to put this movie together. And I was blessed with a role in it, very, very tiny. I'm not saying I'm some kind of star in this. Don't get me wrong, my fans. This is just something. I'm not trying to be a big actor or anything like that. I think I just bring some popularity to the issue and a little sarcasm and my New York sense of humor. And I had a few lines. I'm not even sure which ones went into the show, but I am in it. And as we get closer, I'll tell you a little bit more about my scene. So I'm actually in a scene with Dave Iacovetti. So we have Ignacio joining us here momentarily. If I could figure out how to work this thing, because I'm in a new location. And give me a second to bring Ignacio on. And again, August 23rd is the premiere. So what I'll do is I'll be doing some lives from there, live streaming on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and where else? YouTube. So you'll see a lot more. Heck of a flight. So I'll tell you about that in a second. Ignacio, welcome.
Bill, what's going on, man? Welcome back to my old stomping ground, huh? In South Florida.
Yeah, we both have ties here. I was a career criminal here, and you were a career law enforcement.
There. Both sides of the fence. Interesting enough. But all about redemption, changing your life around, Bill. Congratulations on that. Congratulations on your success in A&E and being out there in that premiere. That sounds pretty cool. I wish I could be out there, but hopefully we can do a video link or something down the road with it, and you get me on board.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. So just a real update. So our flight was crazy grueling. We got laid over in Minneapolis, where I've never been there before, for 7 hours. And a good friend of mine, Steve McLean, is a DJ up there. They had the highest rated morning radio show in the country just a few years ago, and it's still extremely high rated morning show. And they had me on as a guest right after Inmate to Roommate came out, and it really, really launched my name in the Midwest area. And so Steve lives up there, and we were going to connect because I didn't want to sit around the airport for 7 hours. But by the time he checked my messages, it was a little late for me to chance leaving. And I don't know, would TSA have let me back into the airport after leaving to go see the community?
You can leave and come back. You just have to do that big line again.
Yeah, leaving Fort Wayne is like no line. I mean, I think I had one person ahead of me.
Yeah. How'd you get there? Uber, Lyft?
No, we flew, and then car, and then issues with the rental car place, which are being resolved. I'll tell you. I'll say the name of the company. I've never heard of it. They didn't exist when I was in prison. Sixt, SIXT. They're from like Sweden or somewhere, and I thought it was fly by night. I go to the airport. They have a counter right next to like Alamo and Hertz and all these big companies, and it's a European company, and they're booming. They have some phenomenal cars. So we may do some work with them going forward. And Louie Ballesteri, Lou, organized crime detective, retired. He has a corporate account with them, and we're going to be getting one as well. And he made the introduction, and he couldn't have been more gracious about it. So we've had other people looking to help finance part of this trip. We're still waiting for some funds to come through so we can follow through on some things we're supposed to be doing, which is setting up a separate venue for the book signings and all that stuff.
A lot of things going on, so that's good. This is a great show. We're going to talk a lot of good stuff here, Bill. You're out there in South Florida. You're there enjoying a lot of rain, but I guess Debbie has passed by. But we're getting a little bit of remnants of Debbie here now in Virginia. It really hit hard in South Carolina. I know I saw some postings by Wade. We know Hollywood Wade well. He's in Charleston. Man, Charleston got hit hard when they came back. A lot of rain through Charleston, so he's going through that. I thought over a foot of rain. And Sarasota, folks, if you haven't seen the video out of Sarasota when it went through there, man, that is awful. That the homes, water all the way up to the roofs of the homes.
Oh my God,
that's awful. You got to look at those images and down in Sarasota, just awful. That just shows how bad it can be. You don't have to have you know what kills your heart? It's the rain. Do more damage than the wind. And I've been through a lot of hurricanes myself. I don't miss that about living in Virginia, Bill.
I remember years ago, I was in South Florida when Andrew went through, and I was all the way up in Fort Lauderdale, and it hit down, and I think Homestead really hard, Category 5, And that's the reason. Was it 4?
Cat 5.
5, right? Category 5, which is vicious. And not only that, these hurricanes, people don't realize they spin off micro tornadoes.
They do.
The micro burst of a tornado from a big hurricane can be 300-400-mile-an-hour wind, and it shreds everything in its path.
Yeah, you can have a Cat 2, and we thought Irma a few years ago. We went to Irma. That's the last hurricane I went through, and I think 2017. And there are people in certain patches, they say Westchester, who just the hurricanes that had tornadoes, they spin off and just crush certain areas. So, man, it's just because you're a Cat 2, Cat 1, it's no joke.
I'll never forget. Homestead is probably 50 miles from Fort Lauderdale. So yeah. I went down to see what I could do to help out. Like the next day, and I had a nice Cadillac sedan. Drove down there. It was total. I never forget the Peaches record store that I've been to a million times. Was shredded. Oh, yeah. There was one wall standing of Peaches that down as you get way down there. I ended up not being able to do a thing for anybody. It was just complete devastation. You needed massive relief. You needed the government. And so when we came back, I ended up having 3 flat tires. Fort Lauderdale Beach was closed off. You couldn't get over the bridges unless you were a resident on the beach side. They got the intercoastal, and they wouldn't let any non-residents over or people rescue. And even the beach there, they had put that wall up about a year or 2 before. There's like a decorative wall with a neon light going through it, and that wall is good enough to sit on. It's wavy, and there was sand on A1A, which is Beachfront Boulevard. For anybody who knows the song. Yes, Vanilla Ice has Beachfront Boulevard he sings about, but it's A1A and it's a beautiful drive. Everybody loves it.
It is. You got to do it.
And man, that sand had come over that wall, and the sand in A1A was like 2.5 foot deep, just sand all in A1A.
That Hurricane Andrew, I remember clearly because I was in Kendall. I was 19, and it was I was about to go back to school, and I was studying up in Tampa, but we had that 2 weeks. And August 24th, 1992, I remember it like it was yesterday. That thing, or fortunately, we had a really good home, concrete block. It's withstood, but you go a few miles south, Country Walk area, it was leveled. Nothing withstood the wrath. And Florida City, which is right next to Homestead, completely eliminated from the face of the earth, Bill. Completely destroyed. Florida City. It took years to rebuild. And we lost Homestead Air Force Base. They made a mistake by not flying out airplanes that cost us millions of dollars back then. The Air Force made some bad decisions. You look into that. A lot of airplanes were destroyed. The Air Force Base was destroyed. Cutler Ridge Mall. You remember? It looked like a bomb was dropped in Cutler Ridge Mall where you had furniture falling out of it there and everything. I mean, it was unbelievable, the scene. So I also drove by there. Unbelievable.
Wasn't it the Miami Serpentarium? Like it had a big snake and reptile collection. All these animals got loose, and now they're overtaking the Everglades. To this day, they're populated. The boa constrictors, all these invasive reptiles are all eating the
pythons. Bill. Pythons are the big problem. The pythons grow like monsters, and they eat the alligators. They're so big and strong, they wrap around them, and they consume them.
People don't realize is you have wading birds like blue herons, and you have even flamingos in certain places.
Yeah,
they're no more because the alligators would get some of them. They couldn't even eat all of them. But these pythons have been eating all the birds, the beautiful birds, the wading birds.
Mammals. We have lost a lot of mammals in that area, Bill. We have lost so many mammals out there. It's unbelievable. And people also do? They dump their pets in there too, which is a mistake. That's why a lot of people go into the Everglades and they have the season where they pay a lot of money to hunt them. But they get very big, Bill. They get enormous.
I saw some of the shows on History Channel where they'll go with drones, and because the alligators, not the snakes, they are cold-blooded, but they can adjust the camera, the heat-seeking, to detect the difference in their low temperature from the surrounding high temperature. And with drones, they're finding like these 40-foot snakes, 30-foot, 12-foot, and they catch them, and they're making like $500-$600 to catch a snake
per catch. Yeah.
I think they ultimately kill them, but they catch them and they turn them over to some wildlife.
I don't know where you would. Who wants that? Where you put something like that? It's just a big problem. That's interesting. We talked about that. I know we're going to talk about Maduro, but since you brought about the big snakes, it just triggered this story I did on Evil Eyes, and that's why I titled it Evil Eyes. And that was a story I wrote based on a case. There's certain cases that I still remember and think about. They come back to me every so often. And this one really I didn't write much about in my book, and because I wasn't undercover in this one. This is one where I am the case agent, the interviewer, right, the investigator. That's one of the hats here I'm wearing. And this is just before my undercover experience or cases explode. So that's why I went out there. You know what duty is when you're a duty agent, where
you take the incoming calls and new cases, basically, right?
Right. Anything that someone calls in about information or a new case coming in, your duty for the week. And we used to cycle those in every maybe 6-8 weeks, right? Maybe every so maybe less, maybe more, depending what's going on.
Triage the incoming calls that determine where they go, basically.
Yeah, and most of the time it's like from headquarters or the field division has your cell number, and someone calls in and say, "This is what I have information. I have this case." They say, "Okay, get to the duty agent." So you get the calls, whatever. So I had one of the task force officers call me about a discovery and near the airport. So I'm going to give you it's Hillsborough County near Tampa International Airport, a storage facility where the manager comes in, and you can't live in a storage unit, Bill. You can't set up a shower. You can't have weapons. You can't have ammunition. You can't have explosives. This guy checked all the boxes. So this guy here, I'm not going to mention his name. I'm just gonna, I'm giving this guy. He was at the time he was white male, 30s, a little overweight. That's how he looked right there. And the manager noticed all this water coming out of the unit. He has access. He has the right to go in there to determine safety wise, right? He opens it up, and he sees the guy has a shower set up, a bed set up, and he noticed this monster snake tank. And you couldn't imagine, but when I eventually respond, the size of these snakes this guy was having in there, huge black, to me, they look like pythons, huge black pythons with the little mice, they feed them on the side there, which would feed that all the time. So when I go in there, what we see in there, we get consent to search from this guy. He has explosives, modified AK-47s, at least about 10 of them. I will say about a pound of smokeless powder inside there. He has a huge fuse in there. He has books, Bill, on anarchist cookbooks. You know what that is?
Yeah,
how to overthrow the government.
They have different publishers that will put out books like that.
Yeah, how to set up booby traps, right? How to work with explosives. How to overthrow a government. This is the kind of books this guy, almost like a McVeigh type mentality, right there. So we go in there, and then he also gave me consent. We're talking to him. He also gave consent. He has a Chevy Astrovan, right? So once he opened the door, said this, shh. And inside we found in there, I thought of it like an abduction kit. He had masks, glasses, he had leg irons, he had handcuffs, a taser gun, right? Like a stun gun in there, and like hoodies, Halloween stuff, and things you'll look at, it's like, why would you have all this stuff, right? He fell on the sword quickly when I Mirandized him about modifying the AK-47. So imagine that and he had thousands of rounds of ammunition. Imagine with a powder in there, and he had 4 grenades. So imagine that, Bill. If a fire would break out there, it will be catastrophic in that storage facility. People have their families and everything else.
The firemen don't know what they're coming across. They can be killed from just trying to respond to that.
Everybody, all that ammo, smokeless powder, grenades, everything in there, reckless danger. That's why I call it evil eyes, because when I looked at him, I had that look of like this guy was up to something. Right. He was plotting to do, when you feel like you stopped something, this guy was getting ready to do something. He was a loner.
Did he ever come clean what he was up to, or was there a bigger plan?
That he fell on the sword about modifying. You know what he also did, Bill? He worked at an FFL, at a federal firearms license. He was well versed on guns and gun laws, well versed on all of this. So he knew what he was doing was illegal. He was manufacturing unregistered machine guns, right? He had quite a few of those. They're expensive to do that. It's a certain skill set to take to do that. Right. He had that. He had all these explosives. He had all this ammunition. He had all these books. He had a book also with counterfeit ID and counterfeit currency. He had a counterfeit ID. So he was becoming someone else to do something, and he was a loner. Who lives in a storage facility? Right?
It's not like he was getting ready, like you said, to maybe abduct somebody for money or ransom or something.
Ransom, mass shooter, maybe with that kind of firepower. Maybe he's a serial killer, right? That sounds like the MO of a serial killer. He has all the tools.
A lot of times when
and do it.
When you guys or any police agency picks up a serial killer, don't they find a lot of things they call trophies that they kept from the victim, like an ID or a piece of clothing?
Sometimes they do. Yeah.
Did you find anything like that? Did you
No.
did you serve warrants on his residence? Did he have it
That
on
was
his residence?
that was his residence.
It was.
He lives in a storage unit. That
And
was a big mistake.
and all this because the manager of the storage facility saw water leaking out of the bottom of the unit.
A lot of it, and that freaked him out. So he goes in there. And he has a right to go in there because of the contract to make sure he's protecting his property because you're renting it, and he violated every possible aspect of that contract. You can't live in there. Right. You can't have water in there like that. He had a shower. He was showering in there. He was setting up a shower. He had bed. He had these huge exotic snakes, which are also dangerous, by the way.
If he was there when the manager came over, I bet you he would have BS'd his way out of it. Oh, I didn't know. I'll clean it up, and you would have never found out about this. It's a good thing he wasn't around when the manager came across
it. and we seized all that stuff, Bill.
So what if he would have not come back to the unit? Would he have gotten away with this, or was it in his name?
It was in his name.
Yeah.
So we would have found him. We would have found this guy. So he ends up getting a couple of years on. He has no real criminal history. He gets a couple of years for having unregistered machine guns, and he had silencers and other stuff like that in their bill. But we seized all that. He also smoked. He had pot and he smoked weed and all that. He was a drug user. So we seized a lot of his guns that he had and everything else. He gets out, and you know what he does? A year later, less than a year later after getting out, he commits a bank robbery up in Hernando County. Comes to my attention that he's involved in that stuff there. So I'm glad I was able to make aware the judge what's going on. He goes to a 2-day trial. You know how he robs the bank, Bill? He gets $17,000. He gives him a note, and the cashier, the teller, gives him the $17,000. I guess later that night he was so tired in his same Chevy Astro van, he falls asleep, and the police find him there at the parking lot of Walmart up there in Hernando County.
Falling asleep after a crime is probably common because I understand there's something called like in the adrenaline rush. When you get that dump of adrenaline, the crash is severe, and most people, they just want to sleep after something like that.
Did you have that feeling? Did you get that?
No, I was so used to doing what I was doing, I really never got the adrenaline rush.
Even at the beginning?
No, I've been shot at a few times, so I got it then probably.
I would say so. But you never robbed the bank, you said, right? That's a little different.
We went to rob a bank. I'll tell you the story in a minute, but let me clarify something for YouTube and my fans. We don't talk about these crimes to glorify crime. He's former law enforcement. I'm a former troublemaker. I'm telling stories for crime prevention. And, these are all newsworthy cases that have been reported here or there or not. And there's books out about the ones that Ignacio is familiar with. So news purposes, information purposes, we're not trying to encourage anybody to follow in my footsteps or commit the crimes that Ignacio is breaking down here. So I'll tell you this. Okay, so in my previous life, many years ago in the 80s, I got around a guy, I'll just say his nickname, Buttons. People in New York pretty much know who Buttons is. I like to think he was a friend, but, when you have skills and you're a locksmith and I was using a lot of stuff that I wasn't supposed to be using back then that you can't say the name of here, but, everybody gets that. I was using something. And so I don't drink. I don't do anything else, but I was kind of getting bad with that. And I have these skills as a locksmith, and people want to use those skills for their own purposes. They want to send me on scores. They want to do scores with me. I virtually never took a partner because I was always concerned that somebody would tell their girlfriend, then they have a fight with you. And you always had that vulnerability if you brought people in on what you were doing. As you know, in law enforcement, you love it when they have partners because they're all going to tell on each other. You have to slap them to shut them up, I'm sure.
Loose lips sink ships, right, Bill?
Right. So the guy like me, who you might call a loner, which I was when it came to stealing, got away with a lot more, for a very, very long time. But you bring partners in, all that changes. So this guy was in the beginning of all my illegal stuff, and he and his uncle were into robbing banks. They would jump the counter. One of them would stand in the lobby. They would do takeover robberies. They didn't care about hitting one teller drawer.
Oh, wow.
The one would stand in the lobby, shotgun usually, fire into the ceiling, lay everybody down. The other one vaulting the counter and start clearing the drawers. Well, in New York, even in the 80s, there was plexiglass up, the bulletproof glass was up already, because it's New York City. So they probably eliminated that easy counter, but other areas still have the vault counters. So they would do that. Bottom line, we're doing a few burglaries with him, and his mom kept warning me. And, Billy, you're a nice guy. My son's, very dangerous, but he's strung out on drugs. And if you do a big score around him, he's going to kill you and take everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I was warned by many people, and I kind of liked him on the one hand because he had a lot of nerve to do stuff. and he was very notorious and well known as ultra violent. The rumors is he killed 7 or 8 people.
That's
But
awful.
so on the one hand, it kept idiots away from me and what I was doing. But on the other hand, I was putting myself at risk being with him. So we went to go. They convinced me to go rob a bank one day, and I was going to be the getaway driver. I'm a very good driver. If everybody watched my show, Inmate to Roommate on A&E Network, you got a small taste of my driving skills. So just for kicks and giggles, let me throw that up on the screen. For those of you who might know, I star on A&E Network Inmate to Roommate, which is about me getting out of prison, getting on my feet. And I'm in season 1, Bill from season 1, and it became the second highest rated reality show in the United States in its first season. And I'm doing some more stuff. So there's the thing you'll see when you turn your TV on, Inmate to Roommate. So in this show, season 1, you'll see me with some of my driving skills. And I was always known for that. I'm trying to find out how to get this back off the screen. Okay.
There we go.
So we pull up in front of the bank. It's me, him, and his uncle, Red. And we pull up in front of this bank. I think it was a Chase Bank or something. And it's in this strip mall in Brooklyn, right? And I'm getting cold feet because I was in the security business. And I know that statistically, the FBI, whoever, catches like 98 or 99% of all bank robbers. That's it. And these guys' MO was already known by law enforcement, making it that much easier to catch them in something else.
When was the last time they did a bank robbery?
Probably
Before
80s.
That one.
I don't even know. But 80s, 70s, they would just, that was their technique. They'd go to prison, come out, and go right back to the same MO somewhere else. So me calculating, okay, it's them, same style, same MO. Now they drug me along. I'm screwed.
If they kill somebody, Bill, you can be held conspiracy for murder also.
Even in Florida, the principle to a burglary, if you tell somebody, I know they're not going to be home at a certain time and date, go over there and do this, that, and the other thing. If they do something in there, you're charged as principal to burglary. If they hurt somebody, it could be a life sentence. Just for you telling somebody else to go do it. I know
you're in the conspiracy. You're helping them plot it. Yeah.
Right. So in the Florida law, there's principle too. I don't know what the federal comparable would be, but yeah, you're just as bad as if you were there. You could say
you're in a conspiracy. 371, 18 USC 371.
There you go. And there's plenty of ex-girlfriends and ex-wives or friends or people that are even like in the insurance business. They'll often send burglars over to a house to hit the house. Hey, this is my customers. They have $2 million in jewelry and the safe is in this room, and go get it. Well, if those people hurt somebody, that insurance agent with no criminal history is going to prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah, especially if they kill people, for sure.
Yeah. So we pulled up in front of the bank, and before they got out of the car, I drove off. And they're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, so I didn't leave them stranded there. They were still in the car, but I knew I was going to get my ass beat. So I pulled around, a block or two away and proceeded to beat my ass, hit me in the mouth with a sawed-off shotgun, stuck it in my teeth, threatened to blow my head off. Yeah. And the only thing I was lying. I said, look, man, I said, you didn't notice. I said there was a police car doing a patrol. He just drove around the back, and I didn't want to pull out for a second. It's not that I'm scared. I was scared. I didn't want to do a bank robbery.
No.
Yeah, so I never did it, and I was all.
So what happened after they gave you the beat down? What happened?
Nothing. I just kept making excuses every time they wanted to go back to do another bank robbery.
Good for you, Bill. Well, at least you saved yourself that one, but I know you got hit later with more time for other things. So
yeah. Enough is enough. Anyway, Red disappeared. I don't know where he ended up going. Buttons ended up in and out of trouble, and then he goes to jail. He's in Brooklyn House of Detention, and he's got a parole violation coming down. So who's he pressuring for the bond money before the parole violation hits? Me. And at that time, I didn't have that kind of money because he was notorious. I mean, he was constantly, getting serious charges, murder charges, all this stuff. He shot a policewoman. He was dealing drugs, and they went to raid the location, and he says they didn't announce who they were, and he shot through the door and hit her in her chest. He got like 8 years for that, from my understanding. Another case that's highly publicized, there was some mobster, and the son had photographs taken with Rosalind Carter, Jimmy Carter's wife, and all this stuff. So they put a hit on him. And legend in Brooklyn is that my friend Buttons is the one that had to go kill that guy. So, who got his photograph up.
He sounds like a real piece of work, that guy.
I may have the stories. I might have the stories a little mixed up because that's so far in my past. But
is he dead now?
No, we looked him up recently. He's back in prison doing life now in New York. We looked up the articles. He robbed an armored truck. Okay, this is years after I was associating with him. An armored truck, and I guess he was so strung out or desperate, he robbed it with a pipe, a metal pipe. Beat the hell out of two of the guys that had guns. This is how daring this guy is and how
crazy he is. Yeah.
And the 2 bags that he took, he figured he got like $1 million. All it was receipts, and what else was in there? There was no cash. It was a pickup.
Good.
It was a pickup of something else. He
Good.
nearly killed both the drivers. He's got life now in prison.
He's got nothing. Attempted murder. Good for him. Attempted murder and be done with it. He's a career criminal. He's a menace to society. Those are the kind of people need to go away for a long time. Too bad the feds couldn't pick him up and just put him away for a long time.
There's not one person that didn't warn me about him. I'm going back 84, 85. This happened with me. And he was a likable person. He was a big, like Irish-looking dude, like muscle-bound. No matter where you went with this guy, people were like very like, "Hey, Buttons, how you doing?" And give him anything. They were so
some respect. They know he don't play.
Terrified of this guy, and
you don't play. That's why you need. That's why you need your weapons. That way, if someone like that, some psychopath comes at you, you protect yourself. That's why I like to be strapped and carried on all the time. Concealed weapons permit, highly trained in your house, in your car. In case you got a psychopath like that, you're ready to rock and roll. Talking about psychopath. Oh, going back to this other guy, which I think is in the same category as that guy. I'm glad we'll take all that, stop it, and look what he did. How soon he gets out, he commits a bank robbery himself. He got 50. The judge, based on everything he saw, gave him the max. The max. You know what his excuse was? And I'm reading the reports that came out here. Hell, these banks are insured. I'm not hurting the hardworking individual. It's just the banks. They said, what kind of effed up logic is that? He said, you know what? You stole that money. You did what was wrong. You know what he ended up getting? 15 years. Goodbye.
You know what, Ignacio? And let me tell you the other side of that coin. The way people like me or him sometimes rationalize that. And I was a law clerk in prison. Everybody knows now we work trying to help the wrongfully incarcerated. But so I've heard all those excuses. I heard about when the sentencing got real strict, they were going to kill the police. We're going to hold court in the street was the big saying. Yeah. Especially in Florida, the guys were so bitter about they knew if they got caught for anything again, it was going to be 30 years or more. They had the Career Reoffender Act in Florida enacted, and it was
and federally you also have career offender acts.
But to me, except for the violent offenders, it's extremely unfair. It just is. Yeah. So even nonviolent guys we're talking about, and I'm saying this newsworthy, law-worthy, not to encourage everybody, but the attitude in guys in prison was, even the nonviolent offenders, that I will,
he'll shoot it out. He'll shoot out the police. In other words,
yes, and so the laws made more dangerous for you guys than for local law enforcement. Yeah. Because I don't think those type of laws should be applied to nonviolent offenders. It just should. It changed how they looked at things. Anyway, so the attitude about stealing and it's insured, I used to have that same argument. Like, I only steal from the big mansions and the ultra wealthy. But in the end, sometimes you're taking heirlooms that are irreplaceable to that family. That's right. I have seen things that I felt horrible about. Like, I'd get a locket or something, would have like a baby's initials with hair, and then you might find some other indicator that that baby had passed away. So when you have something like that, or the grandfather's pocket watch, and you realize, now I'm not saying in every case, but I was kind of this compassionate burglar in that I might wait a few weeks, make sure everything was fingerprint clean, and go put it in their mailbox or hang it from their doorknob, in a bag or something.
Really?
Yeah, I return stuff at times if I felt bad about stealing it, especially.
I've never heard that before. Okay.
Yeah, I would. And I'm not saying I got around to doing it in every case, but those are the times, you've really hurt somebody. And I'll tell you something else. Excuse me, guys. When guys say that with banks, what they're forgetting, and you forgot to bring up too, is that they've terrorized the teller. They've terrorized the people in the bank.
She had PTSD from that.
They thought they were going to lose their life because you wanted to steal a few $1,000s, So it's not just like you're stealing from a bank and they're insured and the banks are, whatever. But
it has an impact on the employees at the bank for sure. And how about the customer? If you use weapons like these guys did, that's something they remember. They get PTSD from that. Especially you put a shotgun and right to the head or something or to the body, and you shoot it at the ceiling. Man, those are things people will never forget, Bill. They will never. Traumatize those people for life. That's awful.
What woke me up to this? That there's really a human impact to the stupid things I was doing. Even though I had developed a problem and it was hard for me to stop at some point, right? Unless I was stopped. What woke me up to it, and I get choked up with it.
It's okay, Bill.
When I talk about the stuff that I've done and how bad I feel about it. I went to sentencing one time, and it was in Fort Lauderdale, and I stole millions of dollars from this family. And I'm not going to say the case of the family, but so inside the safe there was a little. It was like tissue paper, a silver cross rolled up in there, a nice size silver cross. It didn't have any real value for me because silver at the time was like $2 an ounce, and to me everything was just about the money. So I gave it to the woman I was with at the time. She wanted it. She has it. Probably to this day she has it.
Hmm.
A year and a half later, I get arrested for this and other crimes. And that lady was her family was super influential in South Florida. And her husband said, Your Honor, um, what this man stole from us in 10 minutes, it took me a lifetime to accumulate. And if you go off the record for a second, I'd like to say something. She said, okay. She went off the record. And he said, Your Honor, if you just give me 15 minutes alone in a room with Mr. Steele, he doesn't have to go to prison.
Everybody says that.
She said, no, get back on the record, and we're not going to have that talk in my courtroom. So the wife said, she was crying. She said, the only thing I want back, and I'll make a recommendation that you don't do a day of time, and I'll help you. I'll pay for your college. I'll pay for your daughter's education. I'll do this. I'll do that. Do you remember a silver cross that was in the safe? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. I know that you took the police to some of your storage units and returned what you still had, and you're trying to make things right. If you know where that is and get it back, nobody will get in trouble, and I'll do everything I can to help you and keep you out of prison.
Hmm.
And I said, I know where it is. I'm not going to say it in open court, but I'll talk to the person. Do you know, to this day, my ex, who's from Peru, would not give it up.
Oh, wow.
She would not give it up.
What was so special about it?
It was just, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get to that point. And she told the judge and me, she said, in my first marriage, she's from England. She said, I think her son was 6 months old. She had a car crash. She rolled over. Okay. And the child died in her arms.
Oh, wow.
And that cross was on the coffin before they put it in the ground. She kept the cross from the coffin. That's all I want back. She said, I don't care. You stole millions from us. I don't care about it. I want that back.
Do you want that?
And I had asked my ex a million times. I said, please. To this day, I put a plea out to her. She knows who I'm talking about. Please give me that back for this family. Now, I don't even think this husband and wife are still alive anymore.
Right?
But I still would give it to the family if I could, And I did try, and not for my own benefit, really, because it would have been nice to get a better deal. I still ended up getting 6 years in prison. Yeah. But I would have been nice just to alleviate that woman's suffering. And that's how people need to realize when you commit crimes, there's real consequences that you don't see all the time. I had a chance to hear her speak up in court, and I felt her misery, and that I
felt her pain. You felt her pain, right?
Yeah, and I caused it, and I just felt awful about it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, one thing you're stealing, dollars, but when you start people's personal, sentimental things that have a lot of meaning, that hurts. That does hurt. And I'm glad you saw that, Bill. I'm really glad you saw that. And that maybe started your path to recovery from not stealing people's personal stuff. Like you said, it took them a lifetime to put together, and you stole it in 10 minutes. That's awful.
The best ones, real quick, and we'll get on to our subjects.
Yeah.
If I have a fence is somebody, like most people, some people don't know. You and I know what a fence is. A fence is somebody who's willing to buy, no questions asked, stolen property, jewelry, artwork. So I have fences all over. Most of them were legitimate pawn shops and jewelry store owners who, behind the scenes, without taking my ID, knew they were buying stolen property. Okay,
right.
I had them in Miami in the Seabold building. I had them in Palm Beach on Worth Avenue. I had them in California, Las Vegas, New York, 47th Street, and the Diamond. I had them all over the country. Fences, right? I'm not going to tell you how I figured out who would do that type of thing, but there was a method to it that I'm not going to teach here. But so when I would lock these guys, one guy in California, Russian guy, had a hole in the wall place. I think it was on Hollywood Boulevard or Santa Monica.
Sure, imagine.
And this guy here was always trying to get over on me, rip me off, nickel and dime me. And he was so petty. This is the one score I had never, to this day, I don't feel bad about because I ended up setting him up for me to hit him at his store because he got me so many times. To me, it was like poetic justice. You think you're slick?
Pay back. Right.
What I would do is I would go to his store after hours. I say, I don't want to come during hours because sometimes the burglary detectives come in and they're looking over the jewelry and the IDs that were put up and the fingerprints or whatever they do. And I more than once stumbled across them while they were looking for me, and they're in my fence's place. So I would have all my fences see me after business hours when their doors were locked, let me in. So while he's looking through all this BS jewelry I gave him like $3,000 worth of BS jewelry. I said, hey, I'm going to run in the back and use the bathroom. I knew his safe was open. And I cleared out all his cash, a ton of his jewelry. I walked out of the store with about $200,000 worth of jewelry, and I knew I couldn't accept his deal on the stuff because he had to go back to the safe for the cash. So when he nickel and dimed me on that little bit of stuff, I said, you know what, I'm done dealing with you. I took my jewelry and I left, but I left with everything from his safe from the back room.
He never found you. He never tracked you down.
I was under an alias. I was living out there. He was doing dirty business with me. A few weeks later, some local meth heads robbed him with a taser, and he pulled up a gun and killed one of them. So then they burned the store down. They burned him out of the area.
Oh, they did.
He was doing slimy business with them, and they tried to rob him. He was trying to rip everybody off.
That's in Hollywood, in California, LA.
California, yeah, it happened like in the 80s. That's the only guy. Like, he kept robbing me, and I finally had a chance to get him.
So when you get $200,000, Bill, he's curious here. And we'll talk to our stories. What do you do with $200,000? That's a lot of money back then.
If I get that much worth of jewelry, I may be getting $30,000, $40,000 for it. What do I do with it? I was doing mostly the wrong things.
I got you. And then you got to find another fence, right?
I had them lined up.
Yeah,
I had them lined up. I had more than I could count.
Nice. All right. Interesting stories. Again, wrong things, learn lesson. Obviously, people's property, it's their property, and stealing is there's consequences for everything, Bill, right? There's
nothing like freedom. Freedom to live, freedom to you want to have your freedom, because when you start getting that road, you're going to lose your freedom. I lost everything that matters. Time in my mother's life, her remaining years of her life. I was on the run when my father died. I couldn't go to his funeral. I was incarcerated when my mother died. I couldn't go to her funeral. My kids are like, really, they don't want much to do with me because I was locked up for most of their lives. Their minds have been poisoned. They don't believe in the changes I made, and we're working on all these things. So
lessons learned. Stay on the right path, Bill. You're doing the right thing. Redemption.
Let's get quickly into these national stories, and then we're going to wrap because we went long on the personal stuff.
Yeah, we want some interesting story about Evil Eyes. Check it out in Medium, please. Evil Eyes. I wrote more details about this guy, how I felt I had stopped a mass shooter, a domestic terrorist attack. He had all the tools, Bill, what I've read, what I've studied, of someone who's a lone wolf who was about to snap. He was disgruntled, unhappy with life, a loner that was about to do some bad things. When you're in that situation, you're struggling, that's what people do. History repeats itself. We got to keep an eye on those kinds. So Medium, Evil Eyes. Check it out, folks. Check it out. And then if you like it, please look at my books on Amazon. How about Evil? This is a great transition right here. Nicolas Maduro, a narco, terrorist, dictator, Venezuelan. He has stolen, just like Fidel Castro. He actually went to school in Havana for young communists under the Castro tutelage out there back in the 80s. His father was a communist himself. Nicolas Maduro was a bus driver that rose his ranks in politics all the way to vice president and took over. Hugo Chavez passed away in 2013. Right. He has destroyed Venezuela in the last 10 years, and the exodus of Venezuelans has been over close to 8 million. 8 million have left Venezuela because of it. Massive brain drain. But you know what he's also done? He's also let criminals leave also. Bill, he's also let criminals leave also.
Isn't that the Castro playbook?
Yes, Mario playbook. He left some. I mean, there's good people that left also during that time period, but there are bad people too. He emptied the prisons. He's also doing that. And that's why you see a lot of attacks of these gangs. And Venezuelans have some really nasty gangs. These people come in and they commit house of horrors in New York City, Chicago, other big cities, and there's problems, and they're tainting the good Venezuelans are coming here for the right reasons. And I recommend, if you have Netflix, to watch this movie I saw the other day, Simone, which is about Venezuelan dissidents, where students who were kidnapped by the military for peacefully protesting against them, unarmed, being brought in, and for expressing their freedom of speech about what they've done. Stole the election. He stole in 2020, and he stole again now in 2024. It's clearly he's now a legitimate president. He is a strong man. He is a dictator. He is a tyrant. And on top of that, he is a drug trafficker, a narco drug trafficker, which works with what used to be called the FARC out of Colombia, right? And he's making millions and billions of dollars financing him by the people. Venezuela, at one point in the 80s, Bill, was one of the wealthiest countries in the world, top 10, more than most European nations, right? Now it's 96% poverty.
Is Maduro one of the ones that's already been federally indicted in our country in Tampa or something?
No, and Manhattan. He's a narco terrorist dictator that's been indicted. That's what they gave him, a narco terrorist dictator. He's been indicted and on different conspiracy charges. And I'm hoping to do a Noriega. And I wrote that in my piece. I also wrote that. I wrote a book on this, Maduro, and I also did a piece on him that U.S. intervention is necessary and Maduro has to be removed now. Maduro has to move, just like Noriega was in Operation Just Cause in '89 with Bush, President Bush. Same thing has to apply here. And the legitimate president has to be in Venezuela. He lost the election. Clearly, Bill, he lost 70-30. I mean, it was a rout, an absolute rout. And he has stolen the election, stolen the country for himself. U.S. intervention and get Venezuela back where it needs to be. And that's the situation. He's a great ally. This guy is a piece of work, just like Castro. And hopefully the same thing will happen in Cuba.
You know, right now, you know, I'm in South Florida getting ready for this movie premiere, filming, and my own book signing events, meet and greet, et cetera, et cetera. So in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I'm filming a TV show, and I'm up there most of the time, tons of Venezuelans coming in to that city as well. Now, we do need to transition quickly into these other stories. So Tim Walz, vice president pick for Kamala Harris. I saw some horrible things about him, ultra progressive.
I'm going to talk about a personal story here real quick on Tim Walz here. Governor of Minnesota, right? Mm-hmm. He was there, the governor that let Minneapolis burn, right? While he was during the George Floyd riots, right? I was still ATF headquarters, Central Division. We're monitoring the whole situation. We're seeing the level, because all those are federal violations. Arsonists, they use Molotov cocktails, which is unregistered destructive devices right there. They're using weapons. They're going into federal firearms licensees, stealing weapons and stuff like that. ATF was a big player in arresting a lot of people involved with rioters, and I helped organize a lot of stuff to present it to our number one in command that region. We have briefings. We went 24/7, Bill, working, monitoring for weeks what was going on in that region. It was
burning down the city, and I heard he waited 5 days or more to bring in the National Guard.
How could he do that? And while the mayor, you look at the emails, the mayor and the chief were begging for help. This is out of control. We can't handle this.
Wasn't
they lost the third precinct, Bill? They had to pull out the third precinct, and they torched the third precinct, the rioters. That's unbelievable. Minneapolis police
they're hitting at the heart of society, not just the business owners, but also law enforcement. Every representation of law enforcement, law and order, they're destroying, and they have the nerve to still come on TV and call it a peaceful protest.
Kamala supported BLM. Kamala Harris supported BLM with these terrorists. The domestic terrorists is what they are. Domestic terrorists who terrorize businesses. People, Minneapolis was destroyed, Bill. It's wrong what happened to George Floyd. Yes, they were held accountable, but two wrongs don't make a right, and you don't do this. Civilized societies do not do this. And to me, he was like a Nero. And I call him a Nero because he watched his cities burn and did nothing. He's a Nero. That's all there is to it. He watched it burn and did not do it right while they begged for it. If a commander in chief doesn't protect his people, then he's no good.
Didn't she name him 2 days ago? She named him VP pick 2 days ago, right? The day, I've never set foot in Minneapolis, but the day I was on a 7-hour layover in that city, he was picked. I said, you can't make this stuff up. Yeah. I happened to be right there.
He has a lot of issues with his background. He is very much pro-abortion. He's pro-gun control, right? He wants to ban assault weapons, which no, people need to have the weapons and protect it there. His background, he was a National Guard 24 years, but there's some questions, J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance was an actual combat veteran. I don't think he ever was a combat veteran. Okay. He was a National Guard out of Nebraska and Minnesota. He was activated a few times, but never in combat. And I think there was some discrepancy that he said something about we need to ban the weapons of war that we used in the battlefield. And he said, well, I don't think you ever were out there. So I don't think you should be saying that. So J.D. Vance was an Iraq War veteran with hats off. I like J.D. Vance a lot. I enjoy I know we talked about his movie on Ron Howard, Hillbilly Elegy on Netflix, folks. Check it out. That's a great movie too. And I can't wait to see the debate between Waltz and Lance. Vance, I think it's going to be a good one. Really good between.
Are they scheduled yet?
Not yet, but they're going to. They're debating also, almost through mediaries.
I find it interesting. All the talking heads on the mainstream media are saying that Trump's too afraid. He's ducking debating with Kamala Harris. I'm like, one of the most intelligent men, successful men on the planet is not afraid of anybody. And he's repeatedly come on TV saying, I'm not just looking forward to debating her. I'd like to debate her twice before the elections. The
I hope
people
they
have
do.
heard,
For sure, Fox wants to have him on. Go on Fox and do that one, and find another network and do that one too.
exactly.
But I also want to see Waltz and this other and Vance also go at it. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Now, Israel, where are we at? What's going on over there? I mean,
they're bracing for the worst, Bill. It appears Israel is bracing for the worst. Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas are plotting a retaliation big time. Everything's out there for a massive strike back for killing the head of Hamas and the head of Hezbollah. One's in Beirut and the other one in Iran. It looks like Iranians have had it, and it's going to be nasty.
Because we have a weak, disgusting president who will not let them finish the job, will not back them to the extent they need to finish the job of eliminating these people.
And Kamala's worse, by the way. She is worse because she didn't even have the decency to watch him about a week ago. I told you what happened in Union Station with the Palestinian supporters of Hamas writing all over here in D.C., Hamas tearing down our flag from the flagpoles, putting the Palestinian flags up, and defacing a lot of stuff in the area with Hamas and the Palestinians, PLO, and all that. Unacceptable. And she refused to go see Bibi Netanyahu speak in front of Congress. She didn't go.
Right.
She did not go.
A world leader, one of our biggest allies, in the middle of a war, and she refused. She's this, in my opinion, disgusting.
And her husband's Jewish, and her husband's Jewish. So the interesting story with Doug Imhoff, her husband, right there. Now it's come out. He had a scandalous affair, right, with a nanny taking care of their child in their first marriage and got her pregnant. Unbelievable. And this is the guy now who's going to be the first gentleman, I guess, as they call him, the first lady, the first gentleman. We'll see how this first gentleman ends. He could be an embarrassment, disgrace also.
In fairness, because they're Democrats doing the same thing that Schwarzenegger Republican did. So I lean more Republican, like, I am Republican. I support Trump. But, I guess these weaknesses exist.
Everybody has weaknesses, but that's unbelievable. With the nanny, I guess. I don't know, man.
Right under your own roof.
Stop getting these attractive nannies in there.
Let's say this. Now, Peter Tickton is Donald Trump's attorney, right, Mary?
One of many?
No. I said, right, Mary. She's standing by, helping me get through the show because I can't get this mouse to work again. All right. So he wrote this book, What Makes Trump Tick? He's the lawyer you want between you and your problems. Peter is nearby, and we will be having him on soon. We're hoping to get exclusive access into Mar-a-Lago. He is President Trump's attorney, and he represents Donald Trump. They're lifelong friends. And also we're hoping to see Samantha Markle, Meghan Markle's sister, and Matt Cox. Matt Cox, he's the guy that you see on Home Title Lock Loans. Every time I go on his show, somehow I get millions of views. I don't know how.
Matt Cox, yeah, I've been on his show like about 5 times, and he's been on our show too. I brought him in, and we did a few with him.
Patrick Bet David is nearby as well, by the way.
Are you doing a show with Patrick?
Last time I was here 2 months ago, I just happened to be driving, going one place or another, I think in Pompano or Fort Lauderdale, and I saw his main corporate office right
Pompano,
there.
I think.
Yeah, I pulled over and did a quick video there and all that. So there was rumored a while back that he wanted me on the show. I put off a few things because I wanted my full autobiography to be out before I start doing these huge shows. I think while I'm down here, I'll try to see if I can hook up with.
Let me know, and we'll do a video link. I'll bring him on when we do the weekly show together. I've been watching his show for years, for sure.
So Mary and I are still working with wrongful conviction cases.
By the way, he has a beautiful home on the Intercoastal. Look at the video. He did a video on his home in the Intercoastal.
I've seen it.
Unbelievable.
I think it's in Boca or something, isn't it?
No, Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, I thought he was where I'm at here.
Yeah. Beautiful area. He has. I think Pompano is where he has his shows.
Yep, big studio there. So we have the Mafia Monday with former detective Louie Balistrieri, Mafia Monday segment. We were trying to get things regular scheduled. Louie was very gracious. He's going to be joining us at the premiere for Silent Partners. Silent Partners, again, August 23rd, and we're doing a lot of filming and another movie on both sides of that, some filming as well, plus additional interviews. Now that I'm here, we're going to be doing on the 25th of August a book signing, personal meet and greet. I will be there signing autographs, signing books, talking about my work with Ignacio. We can't leave out Frank Lordy. Frank Lordy has written a book about his innocence.
Yeah, Framed Innocence, right?
Yep, Framed Innocence. And as everybody knows, this is my first book covered by Nancy Grace. All of our book links are in the description, guys.
You got the ATF cover one in there?
Yep, I got that up there too. This is a recent one I put out. And this is on Kindle. It's a very short book. It's funny.
I got the 4 on that one.
Somebody must have bought one the other day because I got like a 9-cent commission or something, a royalty. but so it's kind of funny how when you give them away free, and people don't realize that book is essentially free right there. Just get it. You'll see my writing style, and yes, I do use AI to clean up the editing and the spelling. And then, so these are some of the cases. Now, Dana Ewell is a very famous, notorious triple homicide. Now, I know you don't like to get involved with these cases unless you see all the evidence and you believe in it.
Right.
Like Burke out in Texas, we believe the man shouldn't be in prison. So we work with Dave Reinhardt on the left, and the guy in the center there. He was at a dinner with an FBI agent who was his girlfriend's father. And when hundreds of miles away, when 3 people came in, when 2 people went in or whatever, and killed 3 people of his family members, his parents and his sister.
That's awful.
So they say it took a year or 2 to solve this thing. Well, detectives and people that have since been discredited on many other things are claimed to have, or we believe now that he's completely innocent. He was framed like 30 years ago. He's been sitting in prison all this time. They got the wrong guy. And it's one of the biggest cases until OJ came out ever to hit California and this country. It was a huge case. And so there's a personal connection there. But we'll get into that another time.
Yeah, I mean, interesting story there.
Anything else, Ignacio? So we say goodbye.
Just like always, finish up that no Buckies, right? I'll talk to many. Go look at the link. I think we'll put the link there from my petition. I appreciate you guys get involved. Change.org. Change.org. No Buckies. Stop Buckies coming from Stafford, Virginia. The buck stops here. No mega gas station out here. Go somewhere else, Buckies. We'll have our case. We've been pushing hard, and it's been a stalemate. We've been going almost a year with these guys. Nothing's going on because they need a waiver. They're too big and for the zoning area. So we're putting it to Buckies. The beaver can go somewhere else.
And this is Ignacio's book. If you want, this is a gigantic book. Wonderful read.
Thank you, Bill.
It's audio. We have is it audio yet? Yes.
Yeah, Audible. It's an Audible. Check it out on Audible. Check it out on Kindle. If you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, all my books, 80 books, are free on Amazon. Ignacio Esteban. And I just did a really cool show coming out next week with the most notorious, corrupt NYPD officer ever, Mike Dowd, 7-5 Precinct. You don't know who he is? Check out Netflix. Unbelievable. I saw it. Unbelievable with Nick Gerasi. He's a former Philly cop. I did a show with him 2 hours. That should be coming out next week. So, Bill, they'll be more happy to have you on also. Reach out to Nick. Send him the number with Nick. They'll be love to have you also on the show.
Thank you. Yep. And I interviewed Ralph Freeman, the most decorated detective in the history of New York City Police Department. You can find his video here on this station. Ralph Freeman. Who else?
Chris
D'Elia. Chris D'Elia, another top decorated detective from New York City.
We need to put that show on Rumble too, Bill. That show's not on Rumble yet. We need that show on Rumble. We're back logged like 3 shows
today. Thanks for the reminder. That interview was fascinating, and he's nearby. He's going to be joining us for some special things down
That's
here.
right. He is.
Announced. Yeah. He is also the international head of the ADL, the international
we talked about that,
head of security. So and he works with defending the Jewish people and he's a non-Jewish person, and he's doing a phenomenal job. I believe he's been with that organization like 20 years. So he's doing great.
Excellent work.
Yep. All right. Thank you again for joining us, Ignacio.
Right,
as always, guys, if I seem a little tired, I'm still jet lagged, 7 hours layovers and all that stuff.
Till next time.
Until next time.